Welcome back. This one is going to be a long one because I need to play catch up, okay? 'Cause today is July the 12th and I am currently on chapter 10. A what? Max practically yelled, "My sweet innocent sister with a brute like that? I've seen him. He's a monster." They were standing by the buggy. Etta had put the paint box in the back and told him they were to pick up a blacksmith and his daughter. And oh yeah, Alice was going to marry the man. Philip is a very nice person. He can fix anything. People like him. Max was glaring at her. So, what are you going to do? Invite him to dinner? He'll eat with a raw fork or his hands? His lips tightened. You are not going to marry my sister off to a blacksmith. You're a snob, an arrogant, judgmental snob. Just because you own a few acres, you have no right to think you're better than he is. Philip is a good man. He's not right for my sister. He is exactly right for her. Philip is a sociable person. He has zillions friends. Alice needs someone like that. No. Max seemed to think that ended the moment. He turned away from her. But Etta put herself in front of him. You just don't want a viral hunk like him touching your little sister. You want her with a quiet, brainy guy like Bert, don't you? She suddenly realized what the real problem was. She took a step back. If Alice marries an actual man, she'll move out, and you don't want that, do you? That's utterly selfish. He cocked his head at her. And I'm different from you. Your sister and her husband and their kids and your father live in a house that you ruled. And now that your family is broken up, you dream up ways to put them back together. Why don't you live your own life and not other people's? Etta was too angry to reply to that because the truth hurts. She walked away from him. The whole thing was a dream. Her dream. So she didn't have to put up with someone yelling at her. Wake up, she said. Go back to Henry and stay there. Or maybe Henry was a dream too. Maybe she'd wake up and be at home with her whole family. She'd be cooking for all of them, getting Nola ready for school, and reminding everyone of their appointments and schedules. Suddenly, she stopped walking. She was standing near one of Garrett's saloons, and she could hear laughter from inside. I am an old maid, she said. I am living other people's lives. Even in her dreams, she took over other people's lives. When she turned and looked back, Max was standing exactly where she left him, waiting for her to decide what she was going to do. She suddenly realized that she didn't care if this was a dream or reality. It was here and now, and she was going to take it for as long as it lasted. She ran to him, and he opened his arms to her. He pulled her to him, then moved them both to privacy in the shadows of a building. I'm sorry, she says. Her arms were so tight around him she could almost hear his ribs crack. Forget the blacksmith. It doesn't matter. It does matter. His face was buried in her clean hair. You're trying to help, and you're right. Alice and I have always been together. She is all the family I have left. They both admit it. And you were right about me. Etta started talking fast. When my sister got married, I was a mess. It wasn't because of me that they moved into our big house. It was wonderful, but then she got a job in California, and Dad and I were alone. I was going to see them this summer to try to get them to move back, but my flight was canceled, and she was crying. It makes sense now. Max stroked her hair and held her. You and I will have to make our own family. We'll have a dozen children. If you still can, that is. Instantly, her tears stopped, and she pulled back to look at him. Are you asking if I'm too old to have children? Anger was rising in her. In my world, I'm the perfect age. I can She saw the laughter in his eyes. He was teasing her. With all the horse riding you do, I'm not sure you're capable of stud service. He looked shocked, offended. I'll have you know that. He stopped, then laughed. Now that's my Etta. He gave her a quick kiss on the lips, then pulled away. She was leaning towards him. I suggest we turn everything over to a higher power. He released her and started walking. Etta was close behind him. You mean, yes, Alice, my little sister who loves to look at men in wet shirts. Wait till you see Philip in a wet shirt. He is a sight to behold. Max stopped and looked at her without a hint of humor. Sorry, Etta said, but when she turned away, she grinned. She never had a boyfriend who was jealous. Modern men were into freedom, which seemed to me that they were free to do whatever they wanted with whomever. Max lifted her into the buggy seat. Someday, I'll have to figure out how to get into this by myself. Before or after you learn how to sit in the saddle? He got in beside her. I think I did very well today. Sore? He trained his eyebrows. More like excruciating pain. Smiling, he flipped the reins and the horse pulled the buggy forward. You know where his shop is? She asked. With the size of him, I can see him through the buildings. What am I supposed to give him to do? Twisty sticks. How about a staircase with those things holding up the banister? He'll have to come back here to work on them, Max said. That's not enough time for them to be together. You'll have to build a forge at your home so he can spend days there. Our home, he said, and they smiled at each other. Oh, they getting closer. Etta was glad the buggy wasn't a little two-seater like Cornelia Hot Rod, but had a long back seat so they could take the blacksmith and his daughter with them. In spite of Max's agreement, when they got to the forge, he wasn't welcoming. He gave Etta a look of annoyance that the man had his daughter with him. Max stayed in the driver's seat, leaving it up to them to get in by themselves. Etta had other plans. She slid down to the ground, then motioned for the blacksmith to get into the front seat next to Max. I'll sit in the back, he said. It was so good to hear Philip's voice. Etta told him she wanted to sit next to Nellie so she'd take the back. Neither man looked pleased at her, but in the next second, he lifted her off the ground and set her into the buggy. When Max glowered, Etta smiled at him. The ride back to the house wasn't long, but the silence of everyone made it uncomfortable. Etta stared at the back of the two men. Max was taller, but the blacksmith was wider. They barely spoke. She tried to make conversation. She learned that the blacksmith's name was Patrick. Pat, that's the P. Adams, and his wife died in childbirth. Nellie had never had a mother. That's because she's hiding in a glass room, Etta thought. When the house came into view, Etta breathed a sigh of relief. She hoped that adding Alice to the group would lighten the mood. But suddenly, Max snapped the reins and made the horse race. Pat extended a big arm towards his daughter. Hold on, something's wrong. Instinctively, Etta put her arms around Nellie. After all, she'd be taking care of the child since the day she was born. The buggy hit rocks and potholes and one time nearly turned over, but Max didn't slow down. Etta tried to see what was going on, but she was bent over Nellie in protection. Max drove past the house and jumped out before the vehicle stopped. Pat grabbed the reins, got the excited horse to stop, then jumped down. Etta knew him well, so she yelled, "Pat!" then fell forward. He caught her easily, set her on the ground, then caught his daughter in the same way. Go into the house, Etta said to Nellie in a tone she used when her niece's safety was in jeopardy. The child obeyed. At the entrance of the stable, a half-dozen cowboys were gathered, all of them looking down at something. She could see Max's head in the middle. Etta pushed her way through them to stand by her husband. Rufus was on the ground. His left His left pants leg was ripped and soaked in blood. There was a deep cut in his thigh, and someone had tied a tourniquet above it. He was pale from loss of blood. The expression all the men wore were horrible to see. It was as though Rufus was a dead man. When one of them drove up in the buckboard, Etta said, "You're taking him to a doctor?" Max put his arms around her shoulders, led her out of the crowd. "Rufus is going to lose his leg, if he lives at all," he said it as a fact, not a possibility. "But the only doctor around here is an old army surgeon. Cut your finger and he'll saw off your arm. There's no other choice." "Take him to Martha," Etta said. "Martha Garrett?" "Yes." She put her hands on his arm. "Please trust me. She'll know what to do." "Does she live far away?" "She's closer than town." Behind them, the crowd parted and Pat came out, carrying Rufus like he was a child. He gently laid him in the back of the buckboard. Then Hank jumped in beside him. Another man took over the reins. Max climbed onto the seat beside the driver. "We're taking him to Martha Garrett." "But the doc's in town," the driver said. At Max's look, he nodded, then drove away at breakneck speed. Etta stood there for a moment, thinking of the dangers of 19th century life. No emergency services, no quick communication, a doctor who sawed off limbs no matter what the injury. The men were looking miserable, and she understood. Rufus was liked by everyone. His long-winded stories entertained them. None of them seemed to have any hope that they'd ever see him alive. Etta didn't know where Pat was, but Nellie was in the house. She went through 3 rooms before she found her. Nellie and Tobias were sitting together on a hard horsechair covered sofa. She was eating one of the biscuits Etta had made, and Tobias was telling her about the counts he was doing. "This is the number of calves that were produced last year, and this is how much it cost to feed them. This number is the important one. It's the profit. Not bad, is it? Maxwell is a good manager." As Etta leaned against the doorframe, she blinked back tears. She was seeing her father with his beloved granddaughter. He never believed in reading fairy tales to children. "Useless things," he said. The price of glass slippers was more important than whose foot it fit. Whatever his reasoning, Nola was exceptional at mathematics. Tobias looked up and saw Etta. Startled, he stood up. He didn't seem to know how to explain what he was doing. Etta stepped forward. "Thank you. There was an accident and it was upsetting." She held out her hand to Nellie, who took it, and they left the room. "You enjoy that?" "Yes, he's a nice man, but the town doesn't like him." "Right," Etta said, preaching. "I think he likes numbers better than sermons. What do you think?" "I think he likes anything better than sermons." Etta laughed. "I have a gift for you and something for us to do." They were walking through the kitchen on the way to the back door. She left the paint set in the buggy, but Etta was glad to see that someone had put it on the kitchen table. Good, she thought. She didn't want to expose Nellie to the gloom of the men or see it herself. She handed the pretty box to Nellie and she opened it. "What is it?" "Watercolors. Come with me." In the main parlor, there were 3 framed landscapes, and Etta had an idea that Alice had done them. "Like them?" Nellie nodded. "I thought you might try your hand at doing something like them. Would you like some lessons?" Nellie's eyes widened and she nodded again. "Then come on. I want to introduce you to someone." Etta led the way back to Alice's private glass room. The door was shut. Bolted? She wondered. Tentatively, she knocked. There was no answer. "Alice," she said, "I have someone here who wants to meet you." There still was no answer. "She's an orphan," and Etta said with more force. She knew that her sister could never resist anyone who needed help. "Nellie's father is here to work, and she has no one. Her mother died when she was born, so Nellie is all alone. Alice opened the door. Her eyes were cold as she glanced at Etta, but when she looked at Nellie, she blinked rapidly. As for Nellie, she looked at Alice as though she knew her. Thank you, Etta thought. By all that's holy, thank you. Alice put her hand out to Nellie to lead her inside the room, but Etta stepped between them. She wasn't going to allow the two of them to isolate themselves as Alice's hideaway. We're going to the homestead. Nellie's father has some work to do there. Great whooping lie. She smiled at Alice, silently conveying the message that if she wanted this child, she had to come out of hiding. Alice frowned, debating what to do. Max stored food in the old sod house. I thought I'd cook while you show Nellie how to paint. Her father is a hero. He just saved Rufus's life. We all owe him a great deal. Are lives told for a good cause acceptable? She wondered. I can stay here, Nellie said. My dad won't mind. You don't want a picnic by the river? Etta asked innocently. It would be so much better than that stinky old town you live in, and I'm sure your father would appreciate some time away. But if my sister-in-law doesn't want you to enjoy... Alice gave her a look to stop. I'll go, she said to Nellie, doing her best to ignore Etta's existence on Earth. Alice took Nellie's hand and they walked out, leaving Etta behind. Smiling, Etta watched them go. She'd complete 2 parts of her task. No, her quest, as Max called it. Now all she needed was to add Pat and see if he and Alice were a good match the way Philip and Alicia were. With fingers crossed, she followed them out. Etta was in the sod house and using water she'd taken from the river to clean up. She was thinking of all the health codes she was breaking, but this was 150 years earlier. The water was clean. Well, maybe cows were using it, not to mention all of the other critters. And who knew what the early settlers had done to it? She stepped outside to wring out her rag. There was no stink with a handy drain. No sink with a handy drain. Sitting on the riverbank under the cottonwoods, Alice and Pat were talking and laughing. Oh, they were. To say they hit it off was an understatement. It had been an instant attraction. Pat had driven them all to the homestead. On the way there, Nellie and Etta had sat in the back, their eyes in fierce concentration as they watched the couple in front. It wasn't difficult to see that Nellie wanted them together as much as Etta did. When Pat said something to Alice in a low voice, she giggled like an adolescent. Etta and Nellie smiled at each other. Etta taught her how to do a high five. Triumph. Now it was hours later, and Etta was glad to see that their fascination with each other appeared to be alive and well. Alice and Pat were so hidden under the trees she could hardly see them. Excuse me. As for Nellie, she was farther down in the shade, bent over her watercolor set and absorbed by it. It was so close to sunset, and Etta knew they would need to leave soon. She went back into the house and straightened things that were fine as they were. She wanted to give all of them privacy. When she heard a horse, a sound that was becoming familiar to her, she looked up. Max was standing in the doorway. The setting sun was shining behind him, and he was a glorious sight. Reading her lustful thoughts, he stepped inside and twirled her in his arm. Miss me? He was nuzzling her neck. More than I can say, every minute of every hour. He moved as though he meant to kiss her, but then he pulled away and set her down. Time for that later. Is there any food? She laughed. A true man. As it happens, I did save you a bit. There was a plate heaped full, a cloth over it, and she handed it to him. Trout? Pat likes to fish, she said, then quickly asked, how is Rufus? Oh, he's doing well. Max was eating fast, obviously ravenous. He's already had visitors. He looked at her. He wants to see you to thank you. And by the way, my men may light candles at your feet. Between cooking and saving Rufus, they think you're from heaven. Yeah, I like that. Tell me what happened. Martha was great. It took me a while to get past her complaining, but I told her to stop it and fix Rufus. And she knew what to do? She did. He was scraping his plate. You were right about her. She was a nurse in the war, but she was probably a she but she was probably really a doctor. She just wasn't given credit for all that she did. He shook his head. Always my Etta. I'm sure that's true. I saw nurses do incredible things. Anyway, she sewed him up. That's it? She just grabbed a needle and thread and went at it? She doused his leg in whiskey and bawled us out for being so dirty. She told us we were useless and worth nothing. He struggled. It was Martha being Martha. But she did save him and his leg. She did. She wouldn't let us move him out of her bed. I stayed there until he woke up. He looks good. He handed her his empty plate. Why are your hands bleeding? She asked. You think Martha was going to let us men sit there and do nothing? She put two of us to work on fences. She made Hank clean the stalls. Max smiled at that. Come here. He held out his arms to her. Without hesitation, she went to him and slid her arms around his neck. But before their lips touched, the sound of Alice's laughter reached them. Max moved his head away. My sister is here? Let's shut the door and lock it. Max gave her a look that showed he knew she was hiding something. He went to the doorway and looked out. Alice and Pat had moved from under the trees and were by the water's edge. I'm going to kill him. She knew what he meant. Alice was barefoot and Pat was shirtless, his giant muscles shimmering in the fading light. Etta did a leap of a gymnastic with envy and put herself in front of Max, her hand on his chest. You will not? Don't freak out about this. He had her take off her shoes so he could see her foot. He's going to make a brace for her leg. It won't fix it, but she'll walk more easily. Max narrowed his eyes at her. He did it shirtless? His shirt was bloody, remember? He carried Rufus out. Alice told him to take it off so she could wash it. Max looked at her in disbelief. My sister never washed anything in her life. He stepped around Etta, his head down like a bulldog, and started toward the river. Etta spoke loudly. I'm sure Alice will be happy about this. She will have lost 2 men in 2 days. One of them was given to your former girlfriend, and now this one is being tossed out because you don't like what he does for a living. Alice will surely understand and thank you. Max had his back to her, but she didn't need to see his face to know his expression. He was not happy. Are you going to send Dad and me away? Came a small voice. Etta turned and saw Nellie standing there, her new watercolor set in her hands. Her chin was trembling. Max had stopped walking, but he hadn't turned around. I don't know, Etta said. It's up to my husband, the master of us all, the man who makes all the rules and pity on anyone who disagrees with him. Turning, Max glared at her. This is Nellie, Etta said. Remember her? Pat's daughter. She and Alice like each other a lot. Max was still glaring at Etta. He seemed to be trying to figure out what to do. How's your painting coming? Etta asked the child. It's not easy. She held out the tablet to show her. It was a simple landscape of the river and trees. Max, still frowning, took the pad from her. You need some variety. Nellie was holding the wooden box open. There was a little cap full of water. He picked up the smallest brush and whirled it around on the damp square of green paint. With a dozen little flicks, he inserted dark green marks on the trees, taking them from the monocolor to looking like they had actual leaves. He went over the brown square to add lines to the bark. Etta and Nellie were watching him in awe. Seeming to be unaware of them, Max rinsed his brush and in a few strokes, he put 2 people in the picture. One was a slim woman, while the man Well, he looked like a hairless ape leaning over her in a predatory way. Through this, Max never lost his frown. It was as though he had no idea what he was doing. He thrust the pad back to Etta. It was only then that she saw the way they were looking at him. "What is it?" he snapped. Etta held the pad up in front of his face. "Where did you learn how to do this?" He came out of his trance and looked at the painting. "I never did." He seemed to be as astonished as they were. "Will you teach me how to do that?" Nellie asked. "Please?" For a moment, Max looked back and forth from Etta to the couple under the trees. "It's late," Etta said. "I think we should all go home. Go tell your dad." Nellie ran off. Etta looked at Max. "I'm sorry. I've never meant to disrupt anything. I just want people to be happy." Max didn't say anything. He just went to his horse, got on it, and looked around. "What did you call this place? My man cave? Might as well be Kansas City now." He reined his horse away and left. What was that saying about winning the battle but losing the war? Etta thought. When they got home, Max wasn't there. Etta felt some happiness that Alice, Pat, and Nellie seemed to have bonded, but she thought, what about me? Even if all this was a dream, she still wanted. I want what? She wondered. That home and family that Henry had asked her about. For years, that's what she had. She'd been happy with all of it. The job, her home, the people she lived with. She'd felt needed and wanted. But then Alicia and Philip left, taking Nola with them, and her father had buried himself in his books and studies. Was I lonely and didn't know it? She wondered. That time, or whatever her life was then, seemed less real with every passing moment. Right now, she wanted something for herself. Max, she thought. That's what she wanted. She really, really liked him. Liked his home, his family, even his workmen. "Please don't let him send me back to wherever I came from in this life," she whispered. She went upstairs hoping Max was there. He wasn't in his bedroom or the storage room. She took a deep breath before opening the door to his mother's bedroom. It was empty and clean. The cobwebs and dust were gone. The sheets were fresh. On the dresser was a note. "Thank you," it said, and appeared to have been laboriously written. She knew the men had done it. At least someone appreciated me, she thought. As she looked in the mirror, she thought she'd be her best to make it up to Max. But how? Besides what she's done to Alice, Etta had taken away his man cave, invaded his private space. Unforgivable sins. Oh. She stripped down to her underwear, unlaced the hated corset, and took some deep breaths. She loved to take a hot shower and wash her hair, but she couldn't. The best she could do was try to clean up and put on a pretty dress. She smiled. Maybe she coaxed Max into having that wedding night. "If I'm not too old and plain," she said with a grimace. She opened the wardrobe door. What could she wear to entice him? As she began to look, she felt that dizzy sensation. "No, no, 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 no," she said. "I can't leave now. It's my turn. It's my turn now. For me." But she couldn't escape the overpowering feeling. She fell crosswise on the bed and went to sleep. Is she about to go back and tell Henry everything that just happened, all the things that she's been going through? And she right. She did she did take away his man cave, his private space. But let's see if she about to go back to Henry. Chapter 11. When Etta woke, tears filled her eyes before she even opened them. She squeezed them tight. "Please don't let me be at Henry's house," she whispered. She wiped away the tears and slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was Mac's mother's wardrobe. Okay, she stole the dream. A surge of energy and pure happiness exploded through her. I'm still here, she said, then leaped out of bed. Yet again, she had on a big cotton nightgown. I've got to find out who keeps undressing and dressing me. Over the chair was a pretty cotton dress. It wasn't something made for cooking and riding horses. Beside it was a note written in an elegant hand. Pat is taking us to church this morning, written by Alice. Etta clutched the note to her chest. She was so glad to still be there that she didn't mind that she spent yet another night away from her husband. Was Max still angry with her? Would he be joining them for church? She dressed quickly. I'm getting good at this. She ran down the stairs to make the necessary trip outside. When she got back, she heard voices. Pat and Alice were sitting side by side in the big parlor. They moved apart when they saw Etta. She sat down, smiling warmly at them. She'd done it. There is no church today, Alice said. The pastor is indisposed. Etta fell back against the chair. Her father, who loved numbers and hated sermons, she remembered what Max had told her about him. Drunk? Pat nodded. Nellie wants to stay here with her paints, Alice said. Etta's eyes widened. I have an idea of what we can do. It's something rather, unconventional. Is everything ready so we can leave? It wasn't like they could just get in a car and go. Hitching horses took time. Alice and Pat looked at her for a moment. Then he stood up. Miss Lawton, I will say that I love your ideas. Whatever you want, I will do. He held out his hand to Alice and she stood up beside him. I agree with him. Her eyes were telling Etta that she was no longer angry about the lawyer. Then let's go. We need to stop at the Red Dog. Pat's eyes widened for a moment, but then he nodded. To the gates of hell, if that's what you want. Alice, you should stay here and... The expression of the two women said they would refuse to remain behind. My apologies. We'll all go. Etta got in the back of the two-seater and held on as Pat drove rapidly. It was like the ride after her wedding, but this time she wasn't about to fall off. What a marshmallow I was, she thought. Pat stopped in front of the salon, but made no offer to help either woman get down. He had limits. Get Sally, Etta said. Tell her to put on her prettiest dress and come with us. Pat didn't question her, but went into the saloon. Alice turned to her sister-in-law. You're going to have her sing, aren't you? Oh, yes. Her singing is better than the pastor's sermon. Not that I've heard them. Alice's words reminded Etta of how she first seen her. Alice didn't even leave her glass prison to go to church, but now here she was, waiting for a man who had a daughter, a ready-made family. Minutes later, Sally came out ahead of Pat and climbed in beside Etta. He drove them to the church. Etta remembered Henry talking about Sophia's stage fright, but she also remembered that he said she sang in church. Make us proud, Etta said when they were at the door. Start off with just a closer walk with thee. How do you know that one? Sally asked. It's from my people. Trust me on this. That song will last through the centuries. Pat and Alice went into the church to sit down, but Etta stayed outside. When Sally's beautiful voice began, people on the street stopped and listened. Etta thought about a world where music was a rarity. She waved her arms for them to come inside and listen, and they did. Within 20 minutes, there was only standing room. Bert the lawyer came up the steps and stopped by her. Cornelia and I think we're a match. He waved his hand. He couldn't explain it. Thank you. I've been hearing that a lot. You should. The gossip is rampant. Matchmaking, saving legs, cooking subliminally. People are beginning to say you're an angel. If only my husband thought that, Etta muttered. Max? But he can't take his eyes off you. Maybe that means something different in 1870, but in my day, she cut off. She said too much. You met him last year? No, this is, she looked at him. What is today's date? The 13th of April, 1871. 71? She said. Oh, no, it can't be. That's, I have to go. She hurried down the steps. Her father had told her that the 3rd of May, 1871 was when Wyatt Earp escaped jail. Wyatt Earp, the man no one except her remembered. Was this why she was having this very long dream? Was this thing real enough that she was to change something in the past? Not love matches or even saving a cowboy's life, but to put Wyatt Earp back into the 21st century log of stories and movies? Was the man that important? She stopped walking, the mud and manure of the street sucking at her shoes. How do I do this? She thought. Through Max, of course. But he was angry at her for interfering in the lives of people. She'd done it again this morning. Maybe Sally wasn't supposed to sing in the church. Etta stepped back when a man on a horse nearly ran over her. No doubt Max had had enough of her manipulation. She'd have to do this on her own. Thanks to her father's obsession with the marshal, she did know details of the escape. It didn't happen in Garrett. It wasn't even in Kansas. The question was, how would she get to him? By train, of course. Visions of trains in Old West movies came to her. Cows on the tracks, derailings, attacks by men with guns. In movies, there were endless ways for delays. However, she did get a Garrett by herself. She didn't know where she was supposed to have come from. That she didn't remember it didn't matter. The point was that she could do it. She just wished she could remember how she did it. Did they have sleeping cars? What about food? Where did she get cash? She'd have to get someone to tell her what to do. But who? Alice? She barely ever left her house. Sally? Freddie? One of the cowboys? If only Henry would appear in her dreams, he'd know how to do everything. Etta was thinking so hard that when Max grabbed her about the waist and pulled her out of the way of a heavily loaded buckboard, she wasn't concerned. Maybe getting run over would solve her problems. She was failing at her quest. Max was so close she could smell his breath. You've been drinking beer. She narrowed her eyes at him. Were you at the local, where Freddie works? Yes. Without me? I didn't spend the night, if that's what you mean. It was, but she wasn't going to say that. Why are you standing in the street? She needed courage to tell him what she had to do next. I could use a beer or a few shots of tequila. You can't go to the Red Dog. It's not for... Oh, hell, come on, I'll take you. It took them several minutes to slog their way to the saloon. For all that he was speaking to her, she could tell that things weren't good between them. After all, she told him that she'd done all she needed to do, that she'd forgotten the biggest task, probably the most important, certainly the most difficult one, wasn't going to be easy to explain. He had every right to refuse to participate. The inside of the saloon didn't look like a place of sin. It looked tired and empty. It didn't take much to realize that it wasn't open to the public on Sunday mornings, but for Max Lawton, it was. He went behind the empty bar, got a couple of beers, and took them to the table. It was silly of her, and she had no right, but it annoyed her that he was so familiar with the place that he served himself. She sat down at a table and took a drink. Warm beer, yuck. So how to begin to tell him something he was going to hate hearing? She wondered. Lead into it slowly. Everyone is enjoying Sally singing. I think she was part of my quest. By the way, that was smart of you to call it that. Very imaginative. Why are you pouring sugar on me? I like that. I like that. He gave her a hard look. You have something else to do, don't you? Just one more thing, and it may be the true reason why I'm here. What does that mean? How to lie without lying. It's what I need to do, what I must do. I have to rescue a man who is in deep trouble. From what? His eyes widen. Please tell me it's not from hanging. Certainly not. I need to save him from what would probably be 5 years hard labor for horse thievery. No, Max said, absolutely not. I might help you save a murderer, yes. There is always two sides to that, but not a horse thief. She didn't know if he was serious or not, or how to proceed with her plea. Where is he? Max added. Van Burden, Arkansas. I have to get there during daylight on the 3rd of May. His silence made Etta know he'd reached his limit. I guess I can take the train? What happens when you get there? He asked. I have to get him out through a hole in the roof of the jail. A hole in the roof? A hole that no one has noticed, even in the rain? Then you throw down a rope and pull him up. Little man, is he? Not as big as you, but close. Max looked at his beer and said nothing. Etta stood up. I guess I'll go get a train ticket. I've discovered that if I say your name, I don't have to produce any money. She waited for him to reply, but he didn't. I guess I'll see you when I get back. If I do return, she thought, and turned away. There is no train. She turned back. What? Van Burden is directly south of here. The train goes west, then south. You can't get there in less than a week. Maybe that's all right. It probably won't matter if he escapes on a different date. I heard that the Van Burden court is being moved to Fort Smith. A week from now, your friend will probably be moved there. Etta sat back down. Fort Smith? You mean a place with soldiers, with rifles? He nodded. I don't know how to do that. She drained her glass of beer. With no train and no car, how do I get there? I guess you mean a carriage. You have to go by horseback. It's about 200 miles, so it'll have to be 50 miles a day. Etta's thighs and backside ached at the thought. Even if she could do that, there was a matter of direction. Did she use a compass? There'd be a river to cross, and she'd meet men with guns. In the movies, when a woman alone encountered them, it never ended well. And there were snakes and creatures that bit. She looked at him. Maybe I can hire a guide, some bad-tempered old man who will protect me. I hope I don't lose an arm. She mumbled, the last as she remembered True Grit, one of her father's favorite movies. Max was looking at his beer and saying nothing. I guess I'll ask Pat or Bert. Maybe they know someone who could be my guide. Who else? He asked. Who else what? He looked at her. What other lives are you going to take over? There's my sister and the blacksmith and his kid. Cornelia and her lawyer. Martha is now being called a healer. Freddie would rather dig in the dirt, and Sally might come the first woman preacher in the world. I'm not a historian, but I doubt that. Maybe Joan of Arc would qualify. So, who else are you planning to change, manipulate, and generally rip apart? Sorry, she mumbled. I haven't meant anything bad. I just needed to. She couldn't explain. I think I better go try to find a guide. Sorry for making you pay for it, but I don't seem to have any money of my own. If I take you on a hell-bent trip to Van Burden, does that mean I get you to myself for 4 whole days? He calling out, boo, you better listen. Her expression showed her surprise. I guess so. You wouldn't suddenly tell me that I have to make a detour to say, Wichita because there's somebody there you need to save. He talking to you, you better listen, girl. A bit of hope came to her. There's no one else. Even if I saw Henry, I'd just tell him to go to Martha. He can get there by himself. So you and I would have 4 days alone? She smiled. Yes, we would. There might be a few hotels along the way, but they won't be nice places. People have to share beds. Really? Or we'd have to sleep outside. Kansas City, Kansas wind is bad, cold. She tried to keep from grinning. For warmth, we should stay close together. That would fit in my dreams. 50 miles a day to someone who hardly knows what a horse is might think it's a nightmare. I'll take my chances. You have to do the cooking. Ever skin a jackrabbit? My boss, Lester, made me skin cows. He said I couldn't appreciate meat if I didn't know where it came from. She paused. Can we leave now? We need to get supplies, and I have to see to my sister. Leave that to Pat and Nellie. He looked shocked. Oh, right. Double standards are alive and thriving. You have to protect her. You don't need protection? Not even from the veterans roaming about? Some of them haven't recovered. PTSD, she said. He didn't say any more, just looked at her. I would really, really like for you to take me to Van Burden. I would especially love spending time with you, just you. She reached out to touch his hand, her fingertips against his, a touch of promise. The look he gave her made her start to sweat. He stood up. How soon can you get ready? She stood up. Lightning is slower than me. He gave a little smile, then went to the door with such long, quick strides that Etta had trouble keeping up with him. Okay. When they got outside, Max didn't bother with the buggy. Etta thought maybe it was the first time in his life that he didn't think of his little sister first. He didn't say so, but Etta knew he was leaving his sister to find her own way home. Was he turning her over to Pat's? Max got on the horse, then reached down to Etta and pulled her up behind him. He rode so fast that she would have fallen off if she hadn't held onto him tightly, very tightly. When they reached the house, he held her arms to let her down. Wear the riding clothes and pack a clean set. I'll take care of the rest. Hurry. If we're to get there by Wednesday, we need to leave now. He raised an eyebrow. This man is your... She knew what he was asking, former lover. I've never met him. Smiling, he reined his horses away, and Etta ran up the stairs to his mother's bedroom. To her delight, spread on the bed was the riding outfit. It had been washed, hung out to dry. It smelled of Kansas sunshine. Her fairy godmother who put her in and out of nightgowns seemed to have struck again. She packed as fast as she could. She shoved a set of underwear, which was the size of a modern ball grown, into a canvas bag she found in the back of the wardrobe, then added a clean blouse. There was only one set of gaucho skirt pants. Oh, for jeans and t-shirts, she muttered. She ran down the stairs to the kitchen, planning what food to take. Alice was there. Esmeralda already put things together. She's happy that she can go home. Because you now have Pat and Nellie? Alice's pretty face blushed. I guess. She was the one who put me in the nightgowns? Yes. Etta put her hands on Alice's shoulders and kissed her cheeks. We'll be back as soon as possible. By train, I hope. Alice just nodded, not asking where she was going or why. I guess I'm too weird for them to understand, Etta thought, and I agree. She grabbed a couple of apples and 2 cans of peaches. Alice took them, and Etta ran out the back door, then halted. Max was there with 2 saddle horses that were loaded with bags of supplies. In front of him was a row of people, all of them waiting for Etta. Cornelia stepped forward, holding on a beautiful leather jacket. Kansas get cold at night. Etta took the jacket. Thank you. Cornelia stepped back and slipped her hand into Bert's. Martha handed Etta a bag of food. If you get hungry. She looked embarrassed. Rufus, propped up on crutches, hobbled forward. He held out a knife in a sheath. I hope you don't need it. There were tears in his eyes. Thank you, he whispered. Sally and Freddie gave her a blouse that had been embroidered with a little blue bird. Their eyes told of their gratitude. Etta had changed their lives. Preacher Tobias stepped forward. He was smiling broadly. The town fired me. No more church. I'm doing accounts for the Red Dog as well as here. He pressed something into her hand. It was a symbol, probably Selig, made of silver and on rawhide string. She put it around her neck. He whispered, "Thank you," then stepped back. Nellie and Pat came forward. The child gave her a little bear made of iron. "My dad made it, and it's for good luck," she said, then went back to him. Esmeralda was the last one. Etta hadn't talked to her, hadn't done anything directly for her, but her life had been altered. She felt an obligation to Alice, who she helped raise, but now she was free to retire to her own family. She gave Etta a little bag of chili powder. "Thank you for taking such good care of me," Etta said. Esmeralda nodded and stepped back. All of them parted as Max came forward on his horse and leading another one. It wasn't Sweet-Tempered Tulip. He seemed to know what she was thinking. This is her daughter Daisy. Not old and not plain. His eyes were twinkling. It was Cornelia who laughed. Then the others joined in. It looked like they all heard the story of what she called Etta. Best was their laughter said it wasn't true. Pat gave Etta a boost into the saddle, and the mare followed Max as they rode out. "Happy honeymoon," Cornelia called out, then threw a handful of rice at them. Etta turned in the saddle and looked at the line of people. She'd come to love them all. She watched until they were out of sight, then she turned to Max. "I'm afraid I'm never going to see them again." There were tears in her eyes and her voice shook. "If this trip is too much for you, let me know. I'll get you a rocking chair and you can sit on the porch. If you think that At that moment, Daisy decided to start prancing, and Etta nearly fell off. "How do I stop this?" "Pretend she's one of the humans you boss around. That should put her in line." Etta would have made a retort, but instead she jerked the reins and said, "Stop it." The mare obeyed. "Just what I said." Max gave his horse a nudge and started moving quickly. Etta was right behind him. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 11. How did they all know what she was up to and where she was going? It was just a conversation between her and Max. Unless this is the end of her dream and she's about to go to Henry. Yeah, that was something that was different. I was just like, how do they all know that? Yeah. But anyway, Wyatt Earp, she gotta what's the word? Help him escape. That's part of the quest. I didn't see that coming. Did y'all see that coming? I didn't see that coming. And Max is telling her the truth about everything, isn't he? He's like, you ain't straightened out your life. You dreaming. My aunt said this in our conversation, that she was dreaming what she wanted her life to be. And Max said that, and I like that part. Yeah, that part was really cool. Is there anything else I have to say? Yeah, I'm just shocked about the Wyatt Earp part. So we're gonna see what it's gonna lead to. Is she about to be out her dream, stay in the dream? And what's up with this Wyatt Earp? Okay, so I'm gonna see y'all in the next chapter. Bye for now.